Hold on. There we go. I'm not with it this morning. Hit the button, Bill. Hit the button. Hello, my kings and queens of the Class 2 Plop and Drop Master Guide of all rivers. Sometimes you're only the master guide of some rivers because you haven't done all rivers. So today I want to talk about the Salt River and how I was introduced to the Salt River. So I never knew of the Salt River, period. And then, like, what's the Salt River? Well, when I lived in Moab, yes, I used to live in Moab if no one ever knew. I used to live in Moab, Utah for a while. I still own my home there. And I got roommates because, the society we live in, even 20 years ago, you still needed roommates. And especially if you want to be a boater or a climber and you want to have freedom, time freedom, you pay less for housing, just like you have a paid off car. So, was it my first roommates? No, it was my second set of roommates. When I first had roommates, I had two people do a room, and then I even rented out the couch. I was like dirtbag 101. And then, but then my second set of roommates, I met Jack Franey, and Jack is the one who introduced me to his crew. It's kind of like the old school crew, kind of like in Yosemite. They were that kind of crew. His buddy Jeff, who I know, who lives in Carbondale, who's moving down south because he's retiring. He was in his 50s when I went and did the Salt River. So I probably got to take him down the Salt. He took an older person down that was 78 in his boat. So I probably got to take him down in his 70s now because he loves to go boating. I really want to take him down in a creature craft down, the Death Rapids, because it's not far from his house. But anyway, the Salt River is in Arizona. It's like, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes from Show Low. It's rad. It's a 55-mile long trip. The first 25 miles, you do not, first 20 or 25 miles, you can look up all the details, but you do not need a permit. But for the last 25 miles, you do need a permit. And it's one of those beg and plead, and you pay money and, do Hail Mary full of grace. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Please give me a permit from my government. Maybe I should write that as a song. Yeah, you got to beg and plead for a permit. And if you are applying for a permit, do not get blacklisted. If you get one and you cannot go, you have to turn it in. You have to notify them and say, hey, I can't make it. And then it puts it back into the lottery pool. So whoever wants one can get one. So if you do get a permit for the Salt River, and then the time of the year you want to go is like late March, the last week of March, about the first week or first 2 weeks of April is the primo window. It's usually the last week of March and the first week of April. That's what Jeff told me because Jeff, Jack, and TK, they're friends. They've been doing it for like 20 years. Now it's probably like 30 years. I don't know if they've gone much lately as they gotten older, but back in the day in their 40s and 50s, they went all the time. And Jack couldn't go one year, so me and my best friend Aaron were able to take their position, his spot for on the river. And it's on like Donkey Kong. It's called Quartzsite Falls. There was a big article written about it because some raft guide went in and blew up the falls because it was like a class 6. It was dangerous. You had to like portage through the rock on the left. It was a crazy portage. I'm like, oh my God, only crazies would do this. Like it takes like an hour or two just for one boat to get through all your stuff. Or they would line the boats because it get caught. It's a double ledge hole. TK, which is one of the friends of the group, he had been in the hole for like 3 to 5 minutes in Quartzsite Falls. It's called Quartzsite Falls. I can't believe he lived through it. He was underwater for like 3 minutes, he said. I don't know if he had a life jacket on or he had to take his life jacket off to get out, because I know sometimes that's how you get out of holes. It's against what normal training is. So, but now with the creature craft and it being blown out, it would have been easy to do with the creature craft now. You could have just tied boats to a creature craft and just went through, and then the creature craft would have pulled all the stuff out. So, or you could have took creature crafts as your main gear boat, and then one creature craft could have pulled the rest of the boats through. So, but yeah, they got blew up by an explosive technician. So it went boom. They said explosive. It was in the 90s. It was like 1990 or 92. So yeah, it got blown up. But yeah, the Salt River, there's there's all kinds of awesome rapids. It's mostly like class 2, class 3 with like 3 or 4 class 4s, maybe a 4 plus. Quartzite Falls would probably be a 4.4 plus. Right where Quartzite Falls is, there's like 3 class 4s in a row. It's just like boom, boom, boom. One of them's like 12 10-foot waves in a row. It's the coolest thing ever. Like, funnest water you'll ever be on. What's also cool about the Salt River is every quarter or half a mile there's rapids. It's like nonstop. So it makes it exciting. It's not boring. The last 10 miles are kind of flat-ish, but there's still water. Before the last 10 miles, you get to camp at what's called Cherry Creek. And usually you do a layover there. It's a beautiful beach. There's a creek that comes in. Remember, this is mountain-fed snow melt water, which is cold. And even though you're in the desert, it's still cold water. But the side creeks are like 15 to 20 degrees warmer. So that's why you hang out at Cherry Creek, so you can swim in the creek. And then there's this like mile and a half hike. And you can see this huge vista view. And there twice, if not 3 times, because I've gone 3 times, you see what's called a Gila monster. And they're black and orange, and they're little. They look like a really small alligator on the ground. They're only like a foot or 2 long. And they're black and orange. You notice them because of the orange. Well, you don't really want to mess with them because if they bite you, they can break your bone. Their strength is like 3,000 pounds of strength in their mouth. And then also they have a poisonous in their gland that can kill you too. So, but I got to see, I think 2, if not 3 Gila monsters. My very first trip, I saw a Gila monster when I was walking up to that vista view that I talked about. My friends are like, man, I've been doing this for 10 years and never seen one. And I got to see one every time I've gone. And then when we pulled into camp and they changed colors, I think they're chameleon-like too. Because when we pulled into camp, there was one on a tree branch and we was pulling the tree out of the way because it's kind of where we needed to park boats on the beach. And bloop, you could see it as we were shaking. He was on the branch. We're like, look, that's a Gila monster. And he fell in, swam off, whatever. I went back to shore. But yeah. The Salt River is super awesome. What is it? There's Quartzite Falls is a big one. Blackjack Camp is really cool. Pinball and the maze is probably the hardest. It's a mile and a half or 2, and it's just nonstop, constant. If you're in Duckies and you're a beginner, we had 2 of the 3 people swim. We had to rescue them. And then what's cool is when you're done with the pinball and the maze is you camp at what's called Blackjack Campground, which is at the very end of the pinball maze. Highly, highly recommend it. And it's just this beautiful rock canyon, and you camp literally at the very back of it, so you can look all the way back up the canyon. Beautiful views. The other thing that this river has is, what do they call those? The U-shaped cactuses. There's a name, saguaros. The saguaro cactus. It's the only river in the South with saguaro cactuses on it. It's the only river, and you see them all over the place. It's kind of like when you live at the ocean, you take the ocean for granted. Well, when you go down this river, you take saguaro cactuses for granted because they're all over the place and they're awesome. So again, I highly recommend it. Again, it's a permit river, so you're going to have to, our Father which art in heaven, please let the government give me a permit this time. So yeah, you got to beg and plead, which is stupid. Pay some money. I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks. And again, cancel, make sure you let them know I cancel. I think I'm on a blacklist, but this is why you network and know friends. So you get them to do it for you, or you do it for them in their name, and then you pay the money. And if it happens, you take them. Best friend of mine, his wife's never gone. He's like, you got to go down that river and take us, because I know it because I've been 3 or 4 times. I have all the topos with all the rapids and all that. But there's another rapid called Black Rock. It's scary. It's like real loud and raging, and you don't know what's happening. And it's a big rock, and you got to go around it. And the whole rapid's behind the rock. And you're like, and it's kind of hard to scout. And of course, if you're with veterans, they're like, oh, we're just turn and burn, let's run. And you don't get to scout. And they're like, oh, let's just go down the center and, square up and row through it. And it's true. I was in a Ducky. I mean, a Ducky does tub out because it's big. It's like 6-8 foot wall of water you hit. I mean, you go through a big rapid. It's huge because it's in a corner. It's like in a corner, which creates it. It's creating structure, right? When you have structure, it creates a drop. So, but again, I highly, highly recommend the Salt. It's down near Shiloh, Arizona. I think it's an hour and a half out of Phoenix. It ends up, you actually end not near Phoenix, but like an hour outside of Phoenix. It's in the reservoir. I think it's the Theodore Roosevelt Reservoir is where you end near. And there's a Lowhead Dam, and you take out before the bridge. It's at the bridge or behind the bridge. There's a bridge, so you either take out before it or right after it. You'll see the pullouts on the left. I'm like 98% sure it's on the left. And the shuttle's not too terrible. So, but again, you can do it as like a 3-dayer or 5-dayer. We always did it as a 5-dayer, maybe even a 7-dayer. I know we did it at least as a 5-dayer. So highly recommend the salt. Again, just wanted to get on here and tell you about the Salt River. How I met Jack is how I got to do it, which was awesome. Usually through friends is how you learn new things. So that's why you need to be friendly to people, be kind, be happy. And as always, as the king and the queens of class 2 plop and drops, remember, it's all class 2 plop and drop until you swim.